You'll learn faster than the horses. What was the giant horse breaker really planning? The first time I realized I was in love with him, his hand was wrapped around my throat, not violently but firmly, and his face was so close I could count the gold flecks in his green eyes. Breathe through it, Cade whispered, his voice low and steady as a prayer. Your body knows what to do, trust it. My pulse hammered against his palm, and for 3 suspended seconds I forgot we were standing in a dusty corral with 8 horses watching. I forgot he was my best friend. I forgot everything except the heat of his skin, and the way his thumb pressed gently against my racing heartbeat, like he was reading my panic through my veins. Then he let go, stepped back, and smiled that crooked smile that had been destroying me for months. See, you didn't pass out. But I was drowning, and he had no idea. My name is River Hale, and I came to Broken Arrow Ranch 6 months ago because my life in Seattle had collapsed spectacularly, and I needed to disappear. I was 23, fresh off a brutal breakup with a woman I'd been trying to love the right way, fired from a tech startup for creative differences, and so lost I couldn't remember who I'd been before I started performing my life for other people. My uncle owned the ranch, 2,000 acres of Montana wilderness where cell service went to die, and the only company was cattle, horses, and silence. He offered me a summer job. I said yes because I had nowhere else to go. Cade Merrick was the first person I met, 6'4", broad-shouldered, with sun-darkened skin and hands that looked like they'd been carved from the same oak as the barn beams. He was 25, the head horse trainer, and he had a reputation that preceded him like thunder. They called him the Giant or the Breaker, though he hated both names. I don't break anything, he told me on my first day, his jaw tight. I teach horses to trust again. Big difference. He was standing in front of a massive black stallion that had been abused by its previous owner, and the horse was trembling, eyes white-rimmed with terror. Cade just stood there, not moving, barely breathing, letting the horse decide. It took 40 minutes. Then the stallion took 1 step forward, then another. Then it pressed its nose against Cade's chest, and Cade's whole face softened into something so tender I had to look away. I didn't expect to stay, I didn't expect to care. But something about the ranch, the vastness of the sky, the smell of sage and dust, the way sunrise looked like liquid gold over the mountains, started stitching me back together. And Cade became my unexpected anchor. He taught me everything: how to muck stalls without destroying my back, how to read a horse's body language, how to sit in silence without feeling like I was suffocating. We fell into an easy rhythm. Mornings started before dawn, coffee in the barn office, talking about nothing and everything. He told me about growing up on his family's failing ranch, about his father's drinking, about how horses saved him when people couldn't. I told him about Seattle, about the pressure to be someone I wasn't, about the gnawing emptiness that followed me everywhere. You run from a lot of things, he asked one morning, leaning against the corral fence, his eyes tracking a mare and her foal. Yes, I admitted, you. Used to, he glanced at me, something unreadable in his expression. Then I realized running just takes you in circles. Better to stand still and deal with what's chasing you. I wanted to ask what had been chasing him, but I didn't, not yet. The first month was easy. We worked 12-hour days. We ate dinners at the ranch house with the other hands: Jake, an older cowboy with stories that could fill libraries; Maria, the cook whose tamales could make grown men weep; and Danny, a kid barely 18 who worshipped Cade like a god. We played cards on Friday nights. We drove into town for supplies and bad karaoke at the only bar within 50 miles. Cade was patient, funny, quietly brilliant with animals, and awkward with people in a way that made me feel less alone. I started sleeping through the night for the first time in years. I started laughing again. I started forgetting why I'd been so desperate to leave Seattle. And then slowly something shifted. It was subtle at first, a look that lasted too long, a touch that lingered, a silence that felt heavy with words neither of us could say. I'd catch him watching me across the barn, his expression somewhere between curious and conflicted, and my stomach would drop like I'd missed a step in the dark. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was projecting, imagining things, seeing what I wanted to see. But then he'd smile at me, soft and private, and I'd feel it again, that dangerous, thrilling pull. The breaking point came in June during a violent thunderstorm. We'd been working with a rescue mare named Tempest, skittish, traumatized, terrified of men. She'd been making progress, but the storm sent her spiraling. Thunder cracked like gunfire, and she bolted, crashing into the fence, screaming. Cade moved fast, throwing himself into the corral, his voice low and soothing even as rain hammered down. I ran after him, stupid and panicked, and Tempest reared, hooves flashing. Cade shoved me backward hard, and I hit the mud just as her hooves came down where I'd been standing. My heart stopped. Cade didn't flinch. He just stood there, hands out, talking to her like she was the only thing in the world, until she calmed, until she let him touch her neck, until her breathing slowed. Then he turned to me, rain streaming down his face, and his expression was raw, fury and fear and something else I couldn't name. "What the hell were you thinking?" his voice cracked. She could have killed you. I was trying to help. You could have died, River. He grabbed my shoulders, his grip almost painful, and for a moment I thought he might shake me. But instead he just pulled me against him, his arms crushing me into his chest, his heart pounding against mine. Don't do that again. Don't, his voice broke. I can't. He didn't finish. He just held me rain-soaked and trembling, and I realized with sudden, terrible clarity that this was more than friendship. This was need. This was fear of loss. This was something neither of us knew how to name. After that night, everything changed. The air between us felt electric, charged with something unspoken and dangerous. We stopped meeting each other's eyes as easily. Conversations became careful, measured. The easy touches, his hand on my shoulder, my elbow nudging his, vanished. It was like we were both terrified of what might happen if we got too close. I started lying awake at night in the bunkhouse, replaying moments. The way he'd looked at me in the rain, the way his voice had cracked when he said my name. The way his hands had felt on my shoulders. I tried to convince myself I was wrong, but the more I tried to ignore it, the louder it became. And Cade was pulling away. He started taking extra shifts, volunteering for overnight jobs, avoiding me except when work demanded otherwise. When we did talk, he was distant, distracted. It hurt more than I expected. I told myself it was better this way. I told myself I was reading too much into everything. But then I'd catch him staring at me with an expression so conflicted, so pained, that it felt like a bruise. July brought a new complication, Eliza Monroe. She was a neighboring ranch owner's daughter, beautiful, confident, effortlessly charming. She started visiting Broken Arrow under the pretense of buying a horse, but it was obvious she was there for Cade. She flirted shamelessly, touching his arm, laughing at his jokes, inviting him to dinners and dances. And Cade, to my devastation, didn't shut her down. He was polite, even kind. He went to one dinner, then another. I told myself I had no right to be jealous. I told myself Cade deserved happiness, deserved someone who could give him a normal life, but watching them together felt like swallowing glass. "You okay?" Danny asked one evening, catching me staring as Eliza leaned close to Cade, her hand on his chest. "Fine," I lied. Danny gave me a look that said he didn't believe me. Cade's been weird lately, distracted, like something's eating at him. "Maybe he likes her." "Maybe," Danny shrugged, "or maybe he's trying to convince himself he does." I didn't ask what he meant. The jealousy was poison. It made me snappish, careless. I threw myself into work, taking on dangerous jobs I wasn't ready for, pushing myself until my body screamed. Cade noticed. Of course he noticed. "What are you doing?" he demanded one afternoon, pulling me off a half-broken gelding that had nearly thrown me into the fence. "You're going to get yourself hurt." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You've been reckless for weeks. What's going on?" "Nothing." "Bullshit." His eyes searched mine, frustrated, worried. "Talk to me, River." But I couldn't. How could I tell him the truth? That I was in love with him, that watching him with Eliza was killing me, that every time he smiled at her I felt like I was losing him. So I pulled away, built walls, became someone I didn't recognize. And Cade, confused and hurt, stopped trying to reach me. August was brutal. The heat was relentless, the work exhausting. Cade and I barely spoke except for clipped exchanges about schedules and chores. The easy friendship we'd built felt like a distant memory. I thought about leaving, packing my things, disappearing again, running the way I always did, but something kept me there. Maybe it was stubbornness, maybe it was hope, maybe it was the way Cade still looked at me sometimes when he thought I wasn't watching, with an expression that felt like longing. Then came the night everything broke open. It was late, past midnight. I couldn't sleep, so I went to the barn, seeking the comfort of the horses. Tempest was there, calm now, her head resting over the stall door. I stroked her nose, talking softly, trying to quiet the chaos in my head. I didn't hear Cade approach until he spoke. "Can't sleep either." I jumped, heart hammering. He was standing in the doorway, backlit by moonlight, his expression shadowed. "Yeah." He walked closer, slow and deliberate, like he was approaching a spooked horse. I've been trying to figure out how to say this. His voice was rough, strained, but I don't know how, so I'm just going to say it. My pulse spiked. "Say what?" "I'm scared, River." He stopped a few feet away, his hands shoved in his pockets, his shoulders tense. "I'm terrified, actually. Because I've spent my whole life learning how to read animals, how to understand what they need, how to give them space to heal. But with you," he exhaled shakily, "with you I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to be around you without feeling like I'm drowning." I stared at him, my heart in my throat. "Cade." "I've been trying to stay away." His voice cracked. "I've been trying to convince myself that if I just keep my distance, if I just focus on anything else, this feeling will go away. But it won't, it just gets stronger." He took a step closer. "And I don't know what to do with it, River. I don't know how to." He stopped, his jaw tight, his eyes glassy. "I've never felt this way about anyone, let alone," he gestured helplessly, "let alone another man." The world tilted. Everything I'd been feeling, every doubt and fear and desperate hope, crystallized in that moment. "Cade," I whispered. I. I know this is selfish." He looked at me and the vulnerability in his eyes was shattering. "I know I've been confusing and distant and probably hurting you. And I know you might not feel the same way, but I can't keep pretending. I can't keep lying to myself." He took another step. "I'm in love with you, River, and it's terrifying, and I don't know what it means or how to navigate it, but I needed you to know." For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't think. Then before I could second-guess myself, I closed the distance between us and kissed him. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate, frantic, 6 months of longing compressed into one moment. Cade made a sound somewhere between surprise and relief, and then his hands were in my hair, on my face, pulling me closer, kissing me back like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. We broke apart, breathless, foreheads pressed together. "I've been in love with you for months," I admitted, my voice shaking. "I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was imagining it." Cade laughed, the sound raw and disbelieving. "I've been trying so hard not to want this, not to want you." His thumb traced my jaw. "But I can't, I don't want to." "What about Eliza?" Eliza was a distraction, a terrible, selfish attempt to make myself feel normal. He closed his eyes, guilt flickering across his face. "I hurt her, I hurt you, I'm sorry." "You were scared." "I'm still scared." He opened his eyes and they were so green, so clear, so full of emotion it hurt to look at. "But I'm more scared of losing you." I kissed him again, softer this time, trying to pour every unspoken word into the touch. His hand slid to my waist, holding me like I was something precious, something he couldn't bear to let go. We stayed like that for a long time, the barn silent except for our breathing and the soft sounds of the horses shifting in their stalls. The weeks that followed were a revelation. We didn't tell anyone at first, not because we were ashamed, but because we wanted to protect this fragile new thing we were building. We stole moments, early mornings before the others woke, late nights in the barn, quiet conversations under the stars. Cade was different with me now, softer, more open. Like he'd finally given himself permission to feel. He'd reach for my hand when no one was looking, press kisses to my temple, pull me close and just hold me, like he needed the reassurance that I was real. And I fell even deeper. I learned that Cade hummed old country songs when he worked, that he cried during sad movies but tried to hide it, that he'd never told anyone about his struggles with his identity because he'd been terrified of rejection. I learned that his confidence with horses came from years of feeling voiceless with people, and that the tenderness he showed animals was the same tenderness he was learning to show himself. I learned that he loved fiercely, quietly, completely, and that being loved by him felt like coming home. But fear still lingered. Cade worried about his family, about the ranch community, about what people would think. "This isn't Seattle," he said one night, his voice tight. "People here aren't exactly progressive." "I know. And I don't know how to," he gestured helplessly. "I don't know how to be this person. I don't know how to be gay or bi or whatever I am in a place where that's not exactly celebrated." "You don't have to have it figured out right now," I said gently. "You just have to be honest with yourself. The rest will come." He pulled me close, burying his face in my neck. "I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you." "You won't." In September, we told the others. It was awkward and terrifying and surprisingly anticlimactic. Jake shrugged and said, "Figured, you two have been making moon eyes at each other for months." Maria hugged us both and made Cade's favorite meal. Danny grinned and said, "Finally." The relief was overwhelming. We weren't hiding anymore. We weren't performing. We were just us, messy and complicated and real. Eliza took it harder. Cade met with her privately, apologized for his cowardice and dishonesty. She was hurt, angry, but eventually understanding. "I hope he makes you happy," she said, her voice tight but sincere. "You deserve it." October brought its own challenges. Cade's father showed up unannounced, drunk and belligerent, demanding money. He saw us together, my hand on Cade's shoulder, the casual intimacy of our body language, and his face twisted with disgust. "This is what you've become," he spat. "A goddamn." Cade's expression went cold hard. "Get out. You're a disappointment. Your mother would be ashamed." "My mother," Cade said, his voice dangerously quiet, "would have told me to love who I love and not apologize for it. Now get out before I make you." His father left. Cade stood there shaking, and then he broke, collapsed against me, sobbing, years of pain and rejection pouring out. I held him, whispering reassurances, promising him that he was enough, that he was loved, that he was home. And slowly he believed me. November was healing. We settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable, real. Cade started talking about the future, expanding the ranch's training program, maybe traveling to other states, building something bigger, and he talked about me being part of it. "I don't know what this looks like long term," he admitted, "but I know I want you in it." "I want that too." even if it's hard. Especially if it's hard. He smiled, that crooked smile that still destroyed me, and kissed me slow and deep. You'll learn faster than the horses, he murmured against my lips, echoing the words from that first day. Your body knows what to do, trust it. And I did. I trusted him. I trusted us. I trusted that love, messy, complicated, terrifying love, was worth the risk. By December, the ranch was blanketed in snow, and Cade and I were planning our first Christmas together. We decorated the barn, strung lights, laughed until our sides hurt. And one night, as we stood under the stars, Cade pulled me close and said, "Thank you." For what? For not giving up on me, for staying, for teaching me that it's okay to want this. I kissed him, slow and tender, the snow falling around us like a blessing. I love you, Cade Merrick. I love you too, River Hale. He pressed his forehead to mine, more than I thought I could love anything. And in that moment, standing in the cold with his arms around me, I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Spring arrived, and with it, new beginnings. Cade and I had weathered the hardest parts, the fear, the doubt, the painful process of becoming who we were meant to be. The ranch thrived. Tempest, once terrified and broken, now trusted humans again. The other horses flourished under Cade's patient care, and we built a life together, brick by brick, day by day, a life rooted in honesty, vulnerability, and a love that refused to be diminished. There were still hard days. Days when the weight of the world felt too heavy, when old fears resurfaced, when we stumbled and had to find our way back to each other. But we faced them together, and that made all the difference. One evening in April, as the sun set over the mountains and painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Cade took my hand. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice soft, "about what you said that first night, about running in circles." "Yeah, I'm done running." He looked at me, his green eyes clear and certain. "I found what I was looking for, and I'm not letting go." I smiled, my heart full to bursting. Good, because neither am I. We stood there, hand in hand, watching the sun disappear beyond the horizon. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't running from anything. I was running toward something, toward love, toward home, toward a future I never thought I'd have. And it was everything. Epilogue. 1 year later. The ranch had grown. We'd expanded the training program, hired 2 more hands, and started offering workshops for people interested in natural horsemanship. Cade's reputation spread, and suddenly we were hosting visitors from across the country, people who wanted to learn from the giant who talks to horses. He still hated the nickname, but he wore it with a quiet pride now, because it represented everything he'd overcome. We bought a small cabin on the edge of the property, our own space, away from the bunkhouse, where we could build a life that was entirely ours. It wasn't much: 2 bedrooms, a wood-burning stove, a porch that overlooked the valley, but it was perfect. On Friday nights, we'd sit on that porch with coffee or whiskey, talking about everything and nothing, watching the stars come out one by one. "Do you ever regret it?" Cade asked one night, his arm around my shoulders. "Staying here, giving up Seattle?" I looked at him, this man who taught me what it meant to be brave, to be vulnerable, to be loved, and shook my head. Not even for a second. He smiled, and it was soft and full and real. "Good, because I don't know what I'd do without you. Guess you'll never have to find out." He kissed me, slow and sweet, and the world fell away. There was just us, 2 people who'd found each other in the middle of nowhere and decided to stay. 2 people who'd learned that love wasn't about perfection or certainty. It was about showing up, day after day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. And as the stars filled the sky above us, I thought about that first day, the way Cade had stood in front of that terrified stallion, patient and steady, waiting for trust to bloom. He'd done the same thing with me. He'd waited. He'd given me space to heal, to grow, to become who I needed to be. And in return, I'd given him the same gift. We were still learning, still stumbling, still figuring out what it meant to love each other well, but we were doing it together, and that was enough. On our 1-year anniversary, Cade surprised me with a ride up into the mountains. We rode for hours, just the 2 of us and the horses, until we reached a meadow I'd never seen before. It was breathtaking, wildflowers in every color, a stream cutting through the center, the mountains rising like guardians around us. "I found this place a few months after you arrived," Cade said, dismounting and helping me down. "I used to come here when I needed to think, when everything felt too heavy. It's beautiful. I wanted to share it with you." He took my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "Because you're the reason I don't need to run here anymore. You're the reason I'm not running at all." My throat tightened. "Cade." He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. "I know we don't have everything figured out. I know there are still people who don't understand us, who never will. But I don't care, because I have you, and that's more than I ever thought I'd get." I kissed him, pouring a year's worth of love and gratitude into the touch. I have you too, and I'm not going anywhere. We stayed in that meadow until the sun set, talking and laughing and dreaming about the future. And when we finally rode back to the ranch, hand in hand under a sky full of stars, I knew with absolute certainty that this was where I belonged. Not because the place was perfect, but because the person beside me was worth every risk, every fear, every moment of uncertainty. Cade Merrick had taught me how to trust again, how to love without reservation, how to believe that I deserved happiness, even when the world said otherwise, and in return I taught him the same. We were each other's home, and that was the greatest gift of all. The end. Thank you so much for reading this story. If you felt the emotions, the tension, the hope, if River and Cade's journey touched your heart, please hit that like button, subscribe for more stories, and leave a comment below.